So welcome my people, welcome again. It's the WSXM podcast as always. Tell a friend, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Leave a comment in the comment section, let me know what you think, and I'll hit you up and get back to you with a response. So you don't know that works. So today I wanna discuss the issue of sorry, with Kamala Harris, the VP of the US currently in Africa. She was in Ghana first, then she went to Tanzania, now she's in Zambia. And during the press conference, I realized she's trying to give money to these countries. She gave, I think, 139 million to Ghana. She distributed roughly around the same amount to each countries. But this is what I'm thinking. These countries don't tell you that they don't want aid. President Nana Akufo of Ghana said he doesn't want aid. He don't want to be dependent on the West. They want to create their own and do trades and stuff. So they still come and forcing money on him and on the continent with this little change. But I said that to say this. President Putin just stated around a week ago, 2 weeks ago, roughly 2 weeks ago, that he just forgave a $20 billion debt that African countries had owed to Russia, and he just forgave it, wiped the slate clean. That include, I'm gonna name some of the countries. I don't remember exactly all the countries, but it's South Africa, Morocco, Namibia, Algeria, the Congo, and a couple other countries. He just forgave. Imagine $20 billion he just forgave in debt. And he said this out of his own mouth during a press conference. So it's not like I'm making this up. And also, he stated he's gonna spend billions more on the continent, and he specifically said doing infrastructure. That's what he said, he's gonna spend money on infrastructure, which is what Africa have been needing for umpteen years. And this is why the Chinese is so well accepted and why Russian is accepted, because Chinese are building infrastructure, which include roadways, railways, train tracks, road. They still have this. They are currently in the building this massive road that over the past 10 years they've been making it. Cost billions of dollars to basically stretch across the whole continent. They call it the Beltway, which connect Kenya, Nairobi, and a few other countries directly so they have more easy access to the global economy. And electrical grids, water dams, oil companies that do process oil, and a couple of that more stuff, infrastructure that they're building skyscraper buildings, which are like 20, 30 stories building. So they are doing a lot of infrastructure work. Here comes America offering a measly 130 million. What's that gonna do? That has no impact at all. If you want to really work with Africa and become a friend of Africa, forgive the debts. Like just as how Russia had forgive debt. China already forgiven some debts to some African countries. Not all, but to a couple billion as well. They forgave them. And they are investing. So if America wants China and Russia not to be seen as a friend to the continent, you can't come with a measly 139 million. You have to forgive the debts that African countries owe America. But because of this big de-dollarization that's going on currently, this is the fear America have. That's why they're running now, coming to the continent so they are friends. And we don't want friends, we want trade partners, and help with the upbuilding, the expanding of our infrastructure, to have, for instance, electrical grids to have steady current flow. That's why recently Zimbabwe just reported they make over 80,000 ton plus extra wheat in all because they have a steady flow of current. So the farmers get to store their seeds more better, and they have a vast amount of surplus. So now it drives down the cost of flour, bread, and anything that's made with flour in the country. It's currently right now it's happening in Zimbabwe. So this is what the country need: infrastructure projects. We don't want no aid money, a couple measly hundred and something million. When America just spent $140-something billion in Ukraine and a war. So if they had us take 10% of that money, it would be 14 billion, and putting it in the continent to do infrastructure, we will welcome Africa would welcome them, because don't forget, America is a colonizer. Russia never colonized Africa. China never colonized Africa. They are aides, they are friends to Africa, because from the 60s, Russia have been helping out African countries with weapons and arms and soldiers and It was a friend to the continent for years. It's not recent. So, if America, which they can, because the de-dollarization that's going on right now is causing havoc on the US dollar. For example, Brazil just signed a trade agreement with China recently that they're gonna trade within their own currency. So China gonna use the yen to buy from Brazil, and Brazil gonna use the currency from Brazil to trade with China. So they don't need to use the US. And back to Africa. The reason why most African countries are so indebted to the US or to the dollar, there's a reason for it. I'm gonna explain it a bit, because I understand it a little bit. Each African countries, because they don't use dollar, they have to keep in reserve US dollars. So I think it's some countries they have to keep 85% of their GDP in reserve in US dollars. Some of them is 50%. So imagine, let's say $1 billion, a specific country in Africa is a GDP. They have to keep minimum 700 million in US dollars in reserve before they can do anything globally. So that in itself put a strain on the economy and a strain on the currency itself, and make the US dollar become the dominant one within a country that doesn't use, that's not their currency. So you can imagine if they do away with the dollar, which means they start to trade in their own currency, they don't need to have in reserve the US dollar, not even a dollar. This is going to cause the continent to explode economically wise, and America don't want this. Europe don't want this, because the minute these countries can get to spend their own currency in trade, then they don't need to reserve no extra US dollars or no euros to trade with America. If they want, America would have to change their money into the local currency to trade with said country. Like what's going to happen between China and Brazil. Brazil don't need to have the US dollars anymore, because they're going to take their products from China, from Russia, and even from the African continent, because the African continent is going to be accepting these currencies soon. And with BRICS coming out, you're going to also help with the BRICS currency. Whichever other currency is, it's going to be tradable all over the African continent. So, America, and that's why I say one of the reasons why all these countries all of a sudden rushing to Africa to become friends with Africa all of a sudden, when for decades, all they had to do was spend these money to develop the country. But no, they would have spent it to destabilize the country, to train coup leaders, to cause coups in the continent. And this has been proven that America is training coup members, like the guy in Guinea that took over the coup in Guinea and in Mali and in Burkina Faso. All of these generals was trained by American army to take over to overthrow these democratically elected presidents. It's been proven, it's been said. I have a video on it. I'm gonna drop it soon, so you get to see it in that video where you see the Americans train these coup leaders to take over the country and destabilize the country. And assassination of presidents who don't agree with them. It's been documented and recorded. So for sure that America don't want Africa to come up globally, economically wise, because they keep destabilizing the continent for decades. But now, all because of Russia and China and the big billions and billions of dollars they are putting into the continent infrastructure, this is why America is at war with China and Russia, these two specific countries that helping Africa. But because of the strength of these countries, Africa can deter them, right? So that's where we stand right currently. And that's why they're now coming back in the continent, visiting specific countries. And they are smart. They are visiting specific countries that they know is more softer on them. Like Ghana is not as rigid as South Africa or Tanzania. New president, which is the female president, she is totally with America, like gloves on her hand. They fit because the president before that they assassinated was starkly against America. They went to Zambia, but Zambia president is more of a he's in the middle. He stated publicly that he's not going to stop working with China, just also not because he's working with Americans. So he cannot put that to rest that he's not going to stop working with China because they are there to help improve the infrastructure. And the Russian now is Vladimir Putin just stated he has billions more to spend in the continent infrastructure-wise, solely in infrastructure. So of course they're going to be welcome as a friend to the continent. No one going to arrest Putin on the continent of Africa. It's not going to happen. So they can get them in for that. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You don't know it is a Washington. Well, it used to be the Washington SXM podcast, but now I just shorten it. It's the same name except I just abbreviate it, which is the WSXM podcast. So that's just a little tweak I did. So don't be scared. It's the same channel, just a slight. Instead of the whole name, I just abbreviate it to the WSXM podcast. So thanks for watching. You don't know. Peace, one love. Boom.